So I want to talk to you about your desired state of health. And so what do I mean by that? That's probably a little bit different picture for each one of us. Because when we think about that, think desired state of health. How do you feel? How do you sleep? How's your energy? How's your mood? How's your clarity? How are all those things? All those things go into our desired state of health, right? It's not just the absence of feeling bad, right? So when we think of that, that's that place we want to be. Think of it as our health destination. And I'm supposed to stay over here, so I will work on that. And then I want you guys to be honest with yourself for a moment. Are you there? Are you currently in your desired state of health? And if you're not, okay, can we make steps to start moving in that direction? Because that's the key. I come from a core belief that we are designed to be healthy. Your body wants to be healthy. And if we're not experiencing that, something's getting in the way. So we're going to talk about that because, maybe we're not in a current state of our optimal well-being, but we all, I don't care how old we are, I don't care about our genetic background, we all can move towards a higher state of well-being. And that's what we want to talk about. So when I look at this, there's so many things that go into this. And I want to talk about a key thing that I personally went through that can have a huge influence on your brain health, your focus, your mood, your sleep, your energy, healthy weight, healthy energy, that can have a massive influence on all of these things. And that is our state of digestion. So when we think digestion, it's what I've experienced working in the functional medicine side of things. It can be out of balance and we have no idea that's even happening. So it literally can be something that is disrupting our desired state of health, and we have no idea it's even a problem. How can I say that? That was me. So I was this patient. I thought I had amazing digestion because I didn't have any symptoms of that. I had other symptoms going on, but what I discovered was my state of digestion was playing a big role in some of the symptoms I was feeling. I had no idea they were connected until I actually experienced it. So when we talk about that, these are common disruptions to digestion. And I say that because you may or may not actually be noticing a problem in these areas, but they can be these kind of silent things that are disrupting. So 4 most common disruptors of our digestion: food sensitivities. So this is not an allergy. Many times with a food sensitivity, you don't even know you're sensitive to that food. It can be something that's almost a silent type of thing, and that was my experience. Leaky gut, so this doesn't mean we have a hole in our gut or anything like that. It's about permeability, and I'll go into greater depth as far as what this is. Stealth infections, so we don't feel like we have anything going on. We don't have a fever, we have no obvious signs that we're ill or sick or fighting anything, but your immune system is. Your immune system is kind of like under the radar, fighting something, and we call that a stealth infection, and I'll describe that. I had these 3, and I'll go into my story here in just a moment, because it kind of helps tie this picture together. The low stomach acid are just simply a weakened state of digestion. And I didn't have 100% confirmation this was going on, but I was pretty confident it was going on as well. So when we started looking at these things, let's start with food sensitivities. My experience with this, so I'll give you just a quick snapshot. My wife went through a health crisis 6 years ago. And in that, we decided we wanted to take a natural approach, which led us down the road of functional medicine. And the biggest thing that I experienced, she experienced, we discovered, was there was things going on that we weren't looking at. We weren't asking the questions because we didn't know. We simply just didn't know. And so we started learning things about what was going on with her body, and that started opening other doors, opening up other questions, getting more answers. And so, of course, as my wife was going through this and she was getting testing done and she was getting answers, I'm like, hey, I should probably do this for myself, right? Just to check things. Now, at that time, I honestly felt that I was in good state of health. I had, just your basic blood screening done, like when you get life insurance and they check everything, and all my numbers were beautiful. But I had horrible fatigue. Like I was experiencing that, kind of late morning, mid-afternoon, like right before lunch, right after lunch, where I was like, wow, I am tired, like a wall. And sometimes it was a really big wall. And of course, like most people in that state, I went to caffeine, so I'd have coffee. I was kind of against soda, so I didn't do that, but I would have coffee. I like coffee, so I'm like, no biggie. I'll have a cup of coffee to start my day, a cup of coffee in the mid-morning, a cup of coffee in the early afternoon, hey, I can function, right? I can get through that. At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. Looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was a big deal. But I had horrible fatigue, and I wasn't sleeping good. Actually, I was sleeping really bad. I went from a place where I slept fantastic all the way through the night, woke up feeling good, to where I'd get a couple hours of sleep, wake up for a couple hours, go back to sleep for half an hour, insomnia. So when I started looking at this, the first thing I discovered was this. I had a food sensitivity. I had no idea. My food sensitivity was the gluten, and how I discovered it was I was doing a hormonal panel, because with sleep and everything, I'm like, I gotta be stressed out, it's gotta be all these kinds of things. And part of that test was a simple IgG test to look at gluten sensitivity. And I was like, okay. So I came back and I was expecting my cortisol to be all crazy and all these things, and my cortisol was a little off, but I had pretty high numbers for the gluten sensitivity. I was like, really? Like, okay. I mean, I didn't eat it excessively, but I ate, clean, organic, whole wheat. I try to get, the good stuff. But I was eating it once a day, sometimes twice a day. Never had any GI problems, never had any noticeable symptoms, never had any pain, none of that stuff. But I was like, okay, I'll take it out. So the first thing that I did was I took that out. Next thing, and so going back to this, just so you're clear, I had no idea I had any gluten sensitivity. If you would have asked me before I had that test done, I'm like, no, gluten's fine, I can eat it, there's no problems. And I see this a lot where people are like, I don't think I have any sensitivities. Until we get kind of clarity on that, sometimes we just simply don't know. Leaky gut. So what this really is talking about, again, it's not that there's literally like some sort of damage or tear or something like that going on, it's permeability. So when we look at your GI lining, these are our little gut cells. So your small intestine, I know we say small, and that's just because it's small around. It's actually very large. It's like 21 feet long. The surface area, if we could kind of lay it out, it's the size of a tennis court. So if you think about that, your small intestine, size of a tennis court, that's massive. But the layer, the barrier, it's a single layer of cells, like a cheesecloth. So we have this cheesecloth, the size of a tennis court, that separates your gut, so the food, the bacteria, all that stuff, from your bloodstream, from your inside your body. So you think about that, that's a really important barrier. And oftentimes it's beat up. Toxins, stress, foods that we may or may not know we're reacting to, all these things can cause leaky gut. And when we have that permeability, things that should not pass through that barrier, things like bigger proteins, bigger like sugar molecules. So even some little bad guys, they can pass through that barrier and then they get into our body. So what does your body say? You're not supposed to be here. So your immune system very intelligently says, you're not supposed to be here, we're gonna attack you. So we start developing defenses to things that we really shouldn't, to like foods, because they're in a place in our body that they shouldn't be. So leaky gut can be this kind of signaling problem in our body. And we can check for it. It's actually something that's pretty easy to check for, and I'll talk about that in here in a second, but this is what happens. So when you have that immune system reaction, when you have that, where stuff is leaking through your body, and it creates that disruption, we get inflammation. And I know a lot of us think, when you feel not well, we blame inflammation, right? Like inflammation is the core of all our problems. And the thing to keep in mind, inflammation is not all bad. We need inflammation. If we didn't have a little bit of inflammation, honestly, we wouldn't be able to progress forward. We'd probably die if we didn't have a little bit of inflammation. It keeps our body kind of pushing forward. But too much inflammation, that can be a problem. So with me, I had a food sensitivity causing inflammation, possibly even contributing to leaky gut. I had leaky gut, so things were passing through and irritating my system, causing inflammation. I had the next thing, we're going to talk about stealth infections causing inflammation. So what does this do? When we have inflammation, it really creates more like the signaling pathway in our body. So we get these immune cells called cytokines, which start going all over the place. And inflammation is going to be an amplifier. So some people may experience pain. Some people may experience fatigue. Some people may experience GI problems, like bowel difficulties and that type of thing. It can be anything. Bless you. This is a simple slide just showing that not necessarily directly, but when we get this disruption, we get this imbalance, when we have this signaling in your immune system, it can cause things like cancer, cardiovascular disease, hormonal problems, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, because your body is signaling, and in our body it's amplifying an underlying problem that we may or may not be related to. So this is a test. You can see it down here on the bottom. It's called zonulin. Zonulin is a very simple protein marker that we can test in a stool test or a blood test, and it gives you an idea as far as, do I have too much permeability or am I okay? So we can measure it. And then that's a good thing too. You can measure it before, you can measure it after, you can see where you're at. So we can actually get hard data on, do I have leaky gut? Do I have permeability? And the steps that I'm taking to heal that, is it working? Sorry, I skipped over this one. This is stealth infections. So when we talk about stealth infections, it's a lot of times, so what I had was, this slide. What I had was opportunistic bacteria. So these are not bad guys, these aren't pathogens. It's not E. coli, this isn't like C. diff or anything like that. These are relatively common bacteria, but there's too many. So it was creating this like overcrowding. So if you think of like, our community and our gut, I like to think of it like a hotel. There's only so many rooms. And we want, good residents in the hotel. If you have a couple that are just maybe a little rowdy but not too bad, it's not too big a deal. But if it's just overcrowded, the hotel's full, people are spilling out into the hallway, the lobby, and the pool, and everywhere, it gets a little chaotic. And that's what happens in our gut. So they're not always bad guys, sometimes there's just too many. And those start creating a problem. So we can't absorb things properly, we can't digest things properly, we start getting irritated in our system, creates other signaling. I also had the H. pylori. H. pylori is actually a really common thing, so this is one bacteria that I had. H. pylori, for the most part, most of us have, is it at a high number, and is it releasing toxins in your body? Because that's one of the big things that this bacteria does. And then I had these little fun guys, they're called protozoa. They're a teeny tiny little microscopic parasite. So I know we think parasite, we think like the scary stuff like a tapeworm. This is not a tapeworm, but it is a microscopic little guy, and parasites literally steal from you. So they steal your nutrients, they irritate your intestine, they can contribute to things like leaky gut or malabsorption. And so when we look at this, I had leaky gut, food sensitivities, and stealth infections. And the only thing I experienced was fatigue and insomnia. No pain, no digestive problems, none of those kinds of things. But as I started to address those, things started to massively change. And then we can test this stuff. So the best way to test for microbes, bacteria, and all that stuff is a stool test. It's not going to be in your blood because it's not in your blood. It's in your intestine. It's in your intestinal tract. So you have to test it where it's at. And then when it comes to that, you want to look as big, as broad as you can, because we don't know what's there. So we don't want to just look for things like E. coli or pathogens. We do. We want to check that. But we want to look at the good guys. The kind of in the middle guys. They're not bad. They're not good. They're just there. But we want to quantify them, right? We want to see how many are there and what are they kind of doing inside our system. And then we can check it and see what's going on. I'm pretty confident that I had this going on. However, I didn't have any of the common signs. I didn't have confirmation. But I suspected because all that other stuff affects this. So this is like a weakened state of digestion. Maybe you have reduced stomach acid, or maybe you're just not digesting things efficiently. What are some common signs of this? Reflux is probably the most common sign. I know we think reflux, we think I have too much acid, right? So the acid's like building up and it's filling up in my stomach and it's irritating my esophagus and I get this pain. And that may be so, but a lot of times it's because we don't actually have enough acid. Your body can't break down the food we're trying to eat, so it's working, it's trying to do that, and it's creating reflux, it's creating this response. Or that heaviness, we eat and we're just like, that's kind of sitting there like a little bit of a brick, it's not really going down very easy. Most likely we can't break it down, we're not digesting well. So again, I had definitely 3, most likely 4 of these things. And so what did I do? So immediately once I found gluten sensitivity, I'm one of those people that I'm like, I have a reaction to it, I can stop that. So I did, cold turkey, no more gluten. And so at that time, I cut out the gluten, and I just got more clear on my food choices. I'd always been trying to eat more organic and whole foods, but I got, the little corn chips here and the little stuff over here, I cut it all out. I got really hardcore strict with it. Lots of water, I got rid of the sugars, I got rid of the processed food that, a little bit that I was having. I got rid of alcohol. And I started taking some supplements to work on the infection and work on the leaky gut. Very simple things. What did I experience? Within 6 weeks, my fatigue improved by like 80%. As I was cutting all this stuff out, I went cold turkey, no coffee. Like none. I was drinking, on some days, probably 40, 50 ounces of coffee a day. Kind of crazy. So yeah, if anyone's coffee, you can imagine when I went through it. I had 2 days where I thought I was going to die. I felt miserable. But then it was good. And I didn't have coffee for 6 months. Now, I had more energy during that time than I had in years before that. My sleep started to improve. I went from getting at most 3 hours consistent sleep to getting 4. up to 5. Didn't get all the way back here more recently. It took years for me to get back to 6, 7 hours of sleep, which is where I had always been. But within 6 weeks, that's not long. Energy improved 80%, sleep started improving. I wasn't taking any sleep aids, I wasn't doing any caffeine or sugar of any kind. And I was like, wow, this is awesome, which is why I went 6 months with no coffee. So I'm like, this is cool, I like how this feels. So I talk about that because this is something I see that's common. That's the reason why I wanted to bring this up and share this with you guys. These are things that we can start doing now. So let's say you're like, okay, I have some digestive problems. Absolutely, let's start implementing this stuff. Maybe we need to look deeper and see if there's some of these things I'm talking about. Maybe you're like, man, I feel like my digestion's awesome, but I have some of these other things. I have some energy issues, I have some headaches, I have something going on. Start here. This is simple steps that we can all do. Choose. So it's exactly like it sounds. Where do we think digestion always starts? Chewing, right? No. Digestion, 35% of your digestion starts in your brain. So just think about that. So your thoughts, your mindset on your food plays a vital role with your ability to digest your food, process your food, use your food. So choose clean, choose organic, choose whole foods. That's where we start. And it's fairly straightforward. And then, appreciate that food. So as we're going through this, choose, smell the food, look at the food, kind of soak it in. Why? That starts your digestion. Your stomach gets prepped, your body gets prepped. Your body's like, all right, give me the good food. If we're just like flying through and rushing through and shoving something down our mouth because we're in a rush, do you think you're digesting that? No. We're not hungry, but you're not really digesting it. So chew. I know all of our moms probably told us, chew 20, 30, 40 times, depending on your mom. It really is important. Now, I was the youngest of 4, so I got a habit of eating really fast. But you'd really want to slow down, take time, chew your food. Your stomach does not have teeth. And so if we don't chew our food and just swallow, and we expect our stomach to just magically break it down, it's not going to happen, all right? And that actually irritates your stomach, irritates your small intestine, you create inflammation, you don't digest food, you don't absorb your nutrients. So chew, pretty easy to do. Chill. So what does that mean? Take a moment and just breathe. Sit down, actually sit down and eat. And, even if you're at work, so I'm in an office, an integrated building. We don't actually have a table in our kitchen. So yes, I take my food, I sit at my desk, I close the laptop, and I just sit there with my food. And I think that's really important. Because if you take that moment and maybe you say a little prayer, maybe you just, look at your food and be like, wow, I'm really excited to eat this. But that pause, that moment, that chill, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is your rest, digest, balancing part of your nervous system. So if you're in what we call sympathetic, what's sympathetic? Is it fight or flight? That's it, fight or flight. So how many of us feel like we're in sympathetic? At least a little bit part of our day. Probably a lot of us, right? You got a job, you got family, you got responsibilities, you got stuff on your mind, maybe you're in pain, maybe you're dealing with something else. All these things drive sympathetic. If you're in sympathetic, are you digesting food? Nope. Neurologically, you're not. So parasympathetic, we need to do. How do you do that? Relax. Take a moment, breathe. Do a couple deep breaths before you eat your food. Say a prayer. Do like a 2-minute meditation. Any of those things will relax your body, turn on parasympathetic so you can actually digest. Cherish. Gratitude. To me, when we just think of health, the more gratitude we bring into our world, you're going to experience some pretty awesome changes. And be grateful for your food. Be grateful for the growers, the farmers, the store, people who are the local farmers, local community. Whoever brought that food to you, appreciate that. If you prepared it, be grateful for that action of yourself. If someone prepared it for you, be grateful for that. But just take that moment and cherish it. Check. So this goes into a couple things. When you eat that food, how do you feel? Do you feel energized? Do you feel good? Do you not feel good? Do you feel tired? Do you feel irritated? Do you feel, like just not well, it's not sitting right? So think about that. How many times have we ate something and you're just like, I don't know, that's not sitting right. But you're like, I love it, I really love it. So what do? Keep eating it. So just think about that. It's a little crazy. We all do it, I do it. They're just like, oh, I really love it. But it's kind of like your body's saying, nothing below here wants it. So just really be aware of that. And I mean, believe me, I've changed my diet over the years, and this is a huge factor. How do I feel? And if it's a food that doesn't make me feel good, stop. And then look at your bowel movements. I know, my kids say this, you know, it's like, Dad, you're talking about poop. I'm like, I know, but we should look. And I ask patients about this all the time. And a lot of times I get, I don't know, I didn't look. So just check, just look. And if it's like kind of going all over the place, well, there's probably something out of balance. So what I want to kind of leave you guys with is, if you're not in your desired state of health, what can we start doing to make some changes? Because the reality is if we want things to change with our health, what do we have to do? We have to make some changes. You know, definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting some magical result. That's going to be different. So start making some changes. Start looking at what am I eating, how am I eating, am I taking time for myself? Is there actually something going on that's getting in the way? Maybe I'm doing those things and something's just not getting in the way. And then we can look at, you know, getting some more answers, looking a little deeper and getting some more answers. But the biggest thing is, you know, hopefully this information kind of just start making the wheels turn, and then you decide to take the first step, and then the second step, and the third step. And if you're doing a lot of these things, continue, please, all right? So thank you guys very much. Dr. Karazian is amazing. He has books, awesome stuff. A lot of this information is directly from him, and a lot of the pictures came from a group that I'm with called Living Proof. So thank you guys. Have an amazing day. Soak in all this knowledge today. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be around. Thank you.